Yo people, welcome back to another video. I hope everyone has been doing well. Before you think this is a clickbait, it's not. I'm going to be doing the 4 shows at the top, the ones on the top row as you can see. I just couldn't find a tier list with just the 4 shows that came out this year. But anyways, feel free to write your opinions down below in the comment section if you agree, if you disagree. Remember, it's all opinion based, so there shouldn't be anyone triggered, any beef, no nothing. It's all opinion based. And yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into this. We'll start with the Book of Boba Fett since it came out first, and I'm going to place it over here next to Wasted Potential. Now, the reason I think it gets this category is because it was on the right track for some stuff, it had good elements to it, but it lacked and wasted some characters, moments, and stories, and I feel like they could have dealt with it a bit better, but they were on the right track more or less at the beginning and at some points of the season. One big positive I will say is that this show is responsible for my favorite episode out of all these shows we got in 2022, which was episode 6. But guess what? Boba Fett wasn't even in the episode. The episode was basically a Mandalorian episode, and to be honest, this episode mainly won me over because for ages I wanted to see Luke after Return of the Jedi since we hadn't seen him before. This isn't Luke, by the way, this is Puke Skywalker or something, I don't know. Anyways, we also got to see Luke training Grogu, kind of like the passing of the torch. He name drops Yoda. It was a very well done episode. They got everything right in terms of the aspects of the Force, all the Jedi stuff. It was also the episode that confirmed Cad Bane was still alive, and it managed to show us R2-D2, Ahsoka, Grogu, and it kind of showed us all the big characters in the present day of Star Wars who we will be seeing more of going forwards. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, this episode lacked Boba Fett, who is the main guy of this show. So I feel like the wasted potential stuff comes with things like the flashbacks, Cad Bane and Boba having so little screen time together. I think they could have pushed that a bit more. They should have been more reflecting and kind of showing the audience what their past involved. I feel like Chrysanthemum was another big miss along with Fennec Shand. Chrysanthemum's power levels were a bit weird because he's supposed to be built as this kind of big menace that can just take someone's soul on the spot, but he then gets taken down by those Gen Z mechanic biker people, so yeah, that was a bit weird. As for Fennec, we didn't even get to see her story more in depth, we didn't get to see her past more, and okay, some of you may not care for her, but at the end of the day, it makes her story more interesting, and we do need to know these things, especially if they're pushing her as Boba's right-hand man, or woman in this case. Boba Fett himself was too talkative, and for no reason to be honest, and it kind of felt like he was just there to crack dad jokes and just mess around. I understand he went through the whole awakening, life-changing, near-death experience thing with the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders, and that he's a leader as well now, but it can still be done in a menacing, authoritative way. He was just letting everything go by him, he wasn't making the crucial decisions, he was kind of just there. Apart from when the story needed him to clutch up, he wasn't really doing much.
Fucking soft! Soft as fuck!
The annoying part is that the Boba Fett actor Tamora Morrison has said himself he wanted Boba Fett to speak less, and he was completely ignored, and even recently he said he hopes the character returns to his old ways, which is being kind of more mysterious, more quiet, but the fact that they don't listen to the actor himself, who knows more about this as well. He's not just a random guy that has no clue about Star Wars. He literally played Jango Fett before. I feel like this is a bit shit from people like Jon Favreau and the other directors involved. Let's not forget about those awful Gen Z bikers. They were probably the worst part of the show for me. That bike scene that they had as well, awful. I just didn't really understand that whole situation. It just makes Boba Fett look even worse. The fact that he hires people of that caliber and that look like that. I don't know, man, it's just a bit of a joke. And lastly, I feel like the final fight was kind of disappointing because they built up this big fight and there was hype. They brought back Mandalorian and everything. I was expecting like a big cameo or a big reveal or something, but it was just like a numbers game, kind of like an easy fight that just dragged on, and it was kind of lacking that wow factor that season finales usually have. But yeah, overall, it wasn't horrible. They had some good stuff going on, but then they took it down the wrong direction and kind of, I don't know, some stuff just didn't hit the way they thought it would. We'll move on to Kenobi, and unfortunately, it's on Fraud Watch. It's not because the show was horrendously bad. I was happy to see the return of Hayden and Ewan. The prequels are actually my favourite trilogy, and those are the ones I grew up with. On screen is the definition of fraud, and I feel like they fit the bill with this show. It earns Fraud Watch because they used Ewan and Hayden for clout and the attention, and to hype up everything and pretend like they were the crucial pieces of the story. But really and truly, Leia and Reva were the focal points of the story, and in the process of doing that, they wrecked a lot of George Lucas's canon with things that could have easily been avoided, but it felt like they were just doing it on purpose to ruin it on purpose. They basically said that Reva and Leia are that relevant, it's worth crushing George Lucas's canon that has stood for about 40 years. I was fearing the worst for the show when I saw Kathleen Kennedy doing interviews and kind of being on the promotional material. Where was canon wrecked, you may be thinking? Things like Qui-Gon Jinn being a visible Force ghost. He was only supposed to be heard because he hadn't finished his training to become a full Force ghost.
Show yourself, can you?
I cannot. My training was incomplete.
Another example is when Obi-Wan and Leia meet. They shouldn't be meeting because in A New Hope, Leia doesn't seem to know who Obi-Wan is, but now they've disguised it as her pretending that she doesn't know who Obi-Wan is, and I can understand it, but it just feels cheap and it feels too convenient, and it's better, I think, if they didn't know each other, and that's why Leia didn't really react when Obi-Wan dies right in front of her. Another example is Reva going straight to Owen's farm and trying to kill Luke. This doesn't even make sense. I'm not going to explain why. I'm not going to explain the obvious. But Luke would have clearly told Obi-Wan about the incident in A New Hope when he first holds Anakin's lightsaber. He may have been like, there was some lady with a red one about 10 years ago and she tried to kill us. And Obi-Wan, who was literally there on the farm at the end, could have been like, oh yes, Luke, I remember that incident, ha ha ha, she's actually doing alright now, or whatever Reva's doing, I hope she dies. Another example, Obi-Wan and Vader even meeting. This shouldn't be a thing, I've already said it for ages, I didn't personally want it to happen. In A New Hope, Vader literally says, a presence I've not felt since. And he pauses because it just sounds like it's something bad or something he doesn't want to talk about, because he's referring to the time he got burnt up and cooked by Obi-Wan on Mustafar, and it's an L that he doesn't want to remind himself about. Now, when that scene plays, what's he going to say? Oh, a presence I've not felt since last week. Oh, since last month. Yeah, I actually fought him 2 days ago. Like, what the hell? Now, let's move on to something that was really stupid, and it's that Reva survives 2 lightsaber stabs from Anakin. Not 1, 2. And the fact that her master plan for revenge, after surviving Order 66, you should be grateful. What does she do? She sucks off Vader for 10 years, works her way up the Inquisitor's rank, and then tries to kill him. How does that make sense? I don't know. And let's not forget the narcissism that she has when she's about to kill Luke, but she sees a younger version of herself and stops. I thought the whole point of this was revenge for your friends that got killed by Anakin. So shouldn't you be seeing your young friends when you're looking at Luke and not yourself, you narcissist? What else does she do that is stupid? I know. She stabs the Grand Inquisitor so that he's out of the picture, so they find an excuse to push her character even more. And again, that was useless because we knew he was coming back. He's literally in Rebels. So that was dumb. They tried to create shock and it flopped. The planets they were visiting, a lot of them just felt quite rinsed up with all the other Star Wars shows, and it just felt repetitive. The fights Vader and Obi had, the last one was better, but even then, Kathleen Kennedy called it the rematch of the century, and that was not worthy of what I saw. The best scene of the show was the Obi-Wan and Anakin flashback, and they kind of integrated it well with that episode, and I feel like we should have got a lot more flashbacks and stuff like that. I would also say the scene where Anakin is talking with the broken Vader mask at the end, but they kind of copied that from Vader's fight with Ahsoka in the Rebels show, but who cares, at least we got to see Hayden, I guess. Overall, we wasted too much time with Reva and Leia and all these people that didn't matter when it's called the Kenobi show, and we barely even spent time with people like Luke, seeing his connection with Obi-Wan, with his uncle, with his family. It was nice to see Bail Organa, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Vader, etc. We even got to see Palpatine. But yeah, it was just too much happening for the sake of creating nostalgia hype, cameo hype, without having a clear story. And they were too interested on getting clout on Twitter and pushing agendas instead of thinking about the quality of the show and all the things that they were going to contradict and ruin in terms of George Lucas's canon. Next is Tales of the Jedi, and for me, the Force is strong with this show. The only negative I could really pick out was that some people would say that the last episode kind of destroyed a bit of Ahsoka's personal canon based off of her book. This is a minor thing in my opinion compared to the magnitude and the amount of canon wrecks that we just went through with Kenobi. Apart from that, the show was very strong. They focused on Dooku and Ahsoka, which was very smart of them because they fleshed out Dooku's storyline. They gave him a different dynamic, one that hadn't been seen before apart from in the books and in the comics, and a better understanding as to why he turned to the dark side. I feel like his character really needed that, and it was smart of them to flesh out a character that was quite underrated. And then Dave Filoni goes and picks Ahsoka because he wants to keep filling out her story, since he is the main guy in charge of her character, and since she is a fan favorite, it only makes sense to do so. The show does a very good job of connecting itself to the main storyline as well, as we are put in the middle of Phantom Menace, then we move to the end of Revenge of the Sith, and so on. I think that they kind of managed to tell these stories in such an efficient way, which is very good, because when we first heard it was going to be shorts, you think maybe 5 minutes, 8 minutes, how are they going to do it? It's going to be a bit rushed. And again, apart from that last episode, I think everything flowed well. Like, only the last one was rushed with the last fight with the Inquisitor and everything. But overall, it was very rewarding for Star Wars fans as well. If you've watched everything Rebels, Clone Wars, etc., it makes the whole experience worthwhile. Lastly, it's Andor in the needs work section. I think that it built a nice foundation. It worked really hard on doing everything correctly from a cinematography perspective and all of those things. However, I think it was just paced very slow for most of the season. It lacked big memorable moments across the season. And the funny thing is that if this show was written like Kenobi, the good parts and ideas obviously, and the Kenobi show was written how Andor was written, I believe both shows would have improved by a lot. You can tell they intentionally did this slow pace because they're doing a season 2, but I still think they could have been more ambitious. I think that they started off well with like the flashbacks, for example, and kind of seeing Andor as indigenous and everything, but it kind of just ended randomly, like just because they just wanted to show that particular bit, but it would have been nice to have more flashbacks. And I think the hunt for his sister as well, that just was a thing and then it got forgotten about. And I believe that things like helping to build the Death Star should have been fleshed out more. And I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that there's a season 2 coming up where they could mention it again. But if this doesn't get mentioned again, that's an L. I feel like they zoomed in too much on something very specific, which isolates the mainstream audience from watching the show. And at times, it didn't really feel like Star Wars, but it wasn't like too extreme. But just if I'm nitpicking here and there, I appreciate that they took the risks in the first place and tried creating like a different show. But like I said, the Death Star link could have been a very good connection, something to bring in the main audience, and it could have been massive to the main storyline of Star Wars. And as for the characters, the acting from everyone was good all round. It wasn't cringe and it felt pretty serious. And I didn't particularly like Val. I think she was quite annoying, and honestly I hope she dies in the next season, but she kept trying to force this love thing with the partner, with the person that she was seeing. She's trying to do her job, she's trying to be very serious, she's putting her life on the line, and Val's all, oh, what about us? Shut your mouth, man. However, for me, there was someone worse, and I hope this guy dies as well, and it was Cyril, or how I call him, Cyril. Easily one of the weirdest people ever. No care about the guy. If he dies, don't care, but just go. Like, he's so useless. As for my personal MVP, it has to be Luthen, and he was definitely the most interesting character, the one that pushed plot, the one who was just had all these gadgets, all these links, his shop. It was crazy, and it's nice to see a brand new character be the best character. and the show not needing to rely on its household names. Another thing I can appreciate is the nicer scenery that they had. I appreciate that they left the volume, that 360 degrees green screen room that they've been rinsing, Disney's been using for absolutely everything. But like I said, I feel like it really lacked in terms of impactful events and like shocking moments. The one episode that they managed to do all these things, high intensity, good storytelling, action, good CGI, everything, was episode 6, I think. It was the one where they did the heist and they finally managed to actually do it. That was a very well done episode. They even had the shock at the end when Andor kills Skeen. So I just want more things like that. I hope season 2 has a lot more things like that. I understand they have to be slow with the episodes to build up the tension and everything, but season 2 I really expect just a lot more action and just straight to the point. And yeah, that wraps up this video. Shout out to everyone that made it this far. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like. Definitely drop a comment. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or just any opinion that you have. And yeah, sub if you're new to the channel. Always appreciate it. We are on the road to 200 subs. So I appreciate all the support. I will catch you guys in the next video. Until next one, have a great rest of your day and peace.